All right, so Ryan Struble from Principal Title.
Hello, everyone.
Welcome to the Curb Appeal podcast.
Oh, Curb Appeal.
Yeah, right? That's
Three
a good name, huh?
C's. Clutter, cleanliness, and Curb Appeal.
Yeah,
I like it.
exactly.
The 3 C's of real estate. Gosh, darn, you guys are on it.
Yeah, it's a good little spot. Just happened to work out.
Yeah.
So so things are good at Principal Title though?
Yeah, things are really rocking and rolling for us. Kind of an odd time to start a title and escrow company.
Oh yeah.
As rates kind of take a hike and we kind of go into somewhat of a recession.
Right.
So it's been an interesting venture, to say the least. I think if you can do, I kind of look back at how do you start a real estate company, how I started a real estate company, 30 years ago, and to start kind of what's like a legacy. It's really it's made us kind of look back to how do we add value into our customer's life, really. We went from like order taking. We were all kind of like, pick up the phone, take the order, how do we do that and how do we get paid? You know what I mean? So that's kind of how it was for all of us, for you guys too, and for mortgage brokers also. But if you just kind of look back on your training and what is it that you're going to, what is valuable that you're going to offer to your customer, and how are you going to help your customer get through this, type of recession? And if you're able to do that, I think anybody can be, very successful.
And so 30 years ago, what made you do that 30 years ago?
Super funny story, right? So, I just graduated. I was graduating from college, and I had hail damage on my house. I was a homeowner. Had a cute little house over by Pueblo Community College, and had some hail damage. I was about to graduate, and an insurance adjuster had come in, and I think he was doing fraud claims and kind of stuff like that. And so he came in, looked at the house. I think we had some hail damage, and I was going to have to roof my own house because we had just bought it. So we had some hail damage. We were having some water, and then so I was roofing my own house. It was really crazy. It was a really crazy story. So, so I'm up there, it took like 6 weeks, and I had another rainstorm while I was literally I thought we were going to have like one roof on top of my house, and I ended up, one or two, maybe three, because I knew the rule was like three at
three layers of
shingle, right? So I thought 3 layers of shingles up there, and I get up there and there's 5.
Oh man!
So I'm just tearing it off, and once you dig into one, you're pretty much stuck. So, and then it wasn't decked. It was kind of like lats, and then there was like a 2-inch or 1 or 2 inch gap between each lat, so I had to deck it, and everything. So it was super, super long. We had a pretty good rainstorm, so it did some water damage. So the insurance company wouldn't pay for it, but they were going to pay for the, the water damage as I was, doing it. And it was way more than, I told the guy, I'm like, dude, you guys should have just roofed this house.
Right.
It would have been simple. So, I think he was a fraud adjuster, to be honest with you, and he came in, and I had known his family for a long time at the gym I was working at, and I said, we kind of talked, and he pretty much wrote me a check right there, and I said, hey, I'm graduating with a criminal psych degree this weekend. Not quite sure what I was going to do. I was working for the Colorado Department of Gaming and Racing at the time, and on the weekends, and then I was working for like a food broker company in the day and going to school, and I had a family. So I said I'd love to get on with like State Farm in fraud claims. Love to do something like that. And he said, we don't really hire for that. It takes forever to get into that. You really don't want that. There's nothing really available. And he said, my wife is hiring. Do you mind if I tell her what she's to come help you? And I said, yeah, I don't mind that. Yeah, whatever, I'll look at anything. I said, what does she do? And she said, she's in a title and escrow, and so I said, sure. And literally the very next day, she was literally on my porch knocking on my door. And
wow.
I really didn't have an email at the time. That's how long ago it was. I mean, emails were you really didn't do a whole lot of emails. There were some, but it was normal documents. So she showed up. She said, I think you'd be a great title and escrow rep, or title rep, and love for you to come work for us. And I said, I don't know what that is, but
Right.
if there's a good paycheck involved, I'd love to.
I'll figure it out.
Yeah, I'll figure it out. So, so we got involved with that, and I had my license in about 30 days, and I think I went to another title company within a year, and then just became their sales manager, and went from just a regular sales rep in Pueblo all the way to the state sales manager of this, of Colorado. So,
Wow. And then
yeah,
that was all through Stewart at that
yeah,
time?
at that time I was all working through Stewart. So,
Got
yeah,
it.
Yeah. So
Okay.
yeah, I think I started with security title and then transferred over to Stewart.
And then eventually you became like the
Yeah, it just went from just a sales guy, local sales guy. I think the contract that I had was Huerfano County's president of Huerfano County, and then sales rep in Pueblo, and then I took the sales manager job in Pueblo. Then I encompassed, so I had Pueblo, Huerfano County. Then I went Pueblo, Huerfano County, and Fremont County, and then encompassed El Paso County, and then took half of the state. I was kind of a state sales manager for Stewart. Yeah, for I think 2 years. So
nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then that's when we met.
Yeah.
When
we had met, yeah, it was.
Yeah.
I was running, the Elite 25. I was
Yeah.
running the Elite 25. It was kind of put on my lap with the Elite 25. There was talk in the industry that they wanted to reduce out of all small markets, that Stewart Title wanted to reduce out of all small markets, and Denver was a lagging market for them before I was ever in Denver. So they kept saying, it was really funny because we would blow Denver out of the water. In Pueblo, my numbers my single numbers would encompass all of what Denver was doing. And they just couldn't figure it out. They're like, how is he doing such great numbers in Pueblo and in Huerfano County, and we're struggling to do this, and in Denver, and my numbers were just knocking it out of the park in such a small area. And they'd ask me, how is it that you're doing that? And I said, I have to do it to pay my house payment. Our values in Pueblo County at the time, I think I remember pulling. Average sale price in Pueblo County was like $114,000, $114,700, $114,200 in Pueblo County. So, as premiums go off of the sales amount. So it was going off of the sales amount, and so it was really kind of it was like. There's 3 or 4 times the sales amount that we had in Pueblo. In Denver, you know what I mean? So it's like I have to do three times the actual numbers to do, one deal.
And you doing those numbers, you get paid off of commissions from those.
Yeah, at that time, that's kind of what it was going on. Yeah, that's how sales reps make. They everything they bring in.
Yeah, and
they make a small portion, and then in the title and escrow industry. In the large boxes, the large box stores, Chicago, the First American, the Fidelity, the Stewart Title. That's really how they kind of write their contracts for their sales reps. Is they, whatever you bring in, we pay you a percentage of, and it's written into the overall price amount for the policy, right? So the title. The total amount of the policy, and then so really what happens in the title and escrow world is that the total overhead to protect the consumer. There's a lot of rules and regulations and violations and things of that nature, so that you can't the overhead doesn't explode, and then that increases the amount of the title premium, right? So if we took you guys to France every summer and said, hey, this is the XYZ title company party, and we're going to take you guys all, DORA has placed those limitations on there so that it helps bring a competitive and low cost premium down for you guys. So when you look at it, you take the overhead, you take your what your leases are, what your overhead of payroll is, what commissions you have to pay off of those with the different people, and then what you have to pay back to your underwriter. And you take all of those together, and that's what your overhead looks like for when you file your rates. You say these are the rates that we're going to file for the area. This is normally what would be kind of normal, and that's really, so a sales rep at that time would be paid off of those commissions from that, and it's actually worked into the overhead.
Gotcha.
Commission. So.
And you were doing pretty well at Stewart, I remember.
For 27 years. For 27 years. So I started encompassing, as they were talking about releasing. A lot of those sales managers were saying we're going to go somewhere else. They were deciding to go to other title companies because there just wasn't any support for us there. And they said, "Hey, can you help out until we hire somebody in the Colorado Springs area?" And I said, "Yeah, absolutely. It'll be great for my resume. I just want to be a working manager. That's all I want to do is be, just a working manager. And if I walk away from my customers, who are they going to, and I'm going to hire somebody who does half of the job that I would do for them and understanding and bring them up. That's really what you want to do, but I just didn't, I'm not really, I didn't really feel like a manager. I was more of a hands-on manager and a working manager. So I said, as long as I'm able to do that, I'll help you guys until we, you hire or you allow me to hire somebody else in those areas. So
for Stewart.
Yeah, for Stewart.
Is that where the drama started?
Yeah, that's I was going into markets that they were pulling out of, and that's exactly what was going on.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And I knew that they were eventually going to pull out of those markets. And then I was never in, obviously I was never in any meetings where they decided. I knew they were going to either they were either going to buy in or they were going to pull out. So, because I had seen them just literally laying people off right and left.
Right.
They'd lay off 80 people 3 days before Christmas. And that's kind of what all title companies do. They kind of just lay off. So that's really where I don't think that, I think that the principal title can really take off is because we don't have high overhead. We don't have those, 3 days before Christmas layoffs.
Right,
you know what I mean?
Right. Well, they're just such a huge company, encompassing other companies. So to give people background, Stewart is basically an umbrella company for, who do they own now? Empire, Unified, and who else?
I think they're, I had seen Unified Empire, Legacy, and I think it's Colorado Mountain.
Yeah, so they're
Colorado
just
Title,
monopolizing.
So they're
a huge company. Yeah.
Really, what was taking place is that these companies, a lot of those folks used to work for Stewart Title, so they worked for Stewart Title, and they went off to do small ventures, just like I'm doing. Just like Principal Title is doing.
And so title reps, they basically try to convince realtors to work with them. And you said before that there was a cap, like a limit, like you can't just take all of us to Paris right now, right? Because there's other small companies that can't do that. Is that the point that you're making?
So really the point that there is DORA, Department of Regulatory Agencies, wants to allow a competitive world for all of us to work in. And not only that, it keeps us from that, once the overhead, one title company does that, and rates get extremely expensive for just the regular buyer. A lot of places in California, it was so out of control in California. If we were in California, I wouldn't be able to send you a birthday card in any way. I couldn't take you to a birthday lunch, couldn't do anything at all. And really? Yeah, absolutely, because it just got so out of control that that money's got to come from somewhere. So that money comes from the title premiums. That's how they make their money back, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's really what we looked at when we were looking at making Principal Title and building Principal Title. So Principal Title is a kind of an online title company, right? We have some major hubs. We have some single hubs, and then we have virtual everywhere, right? We go in just like we did with you. We come into this office. It's all done, most of it done by virtual, and then we come in and it's hands-on.
Right, that is cool. Yeah.
For the title company, right? So what we did was we took a lot of the things that we didn't want from a title company. We wrote those down, right? And then we wanted the things that we wanted, or the things that we didn't have and we wanted, and we said, this is how we want to have a title company, and it exactly matched the principal title
Nice.
motive.
Nice.
So, and then what happens is when we don't have those huge, those huge leases in huge buildings like downtown Denver or the one that we had in Colorado Springs. Those things were outrageously expensive, and then when COVID hit, they were empty. And you know what I mean? I mean, we have $10,000 parking lots.
Right.
You know what I mean? And we had 10-year leases on them. So it was just extremely expensive, right? So that was something that really was really appealing to us, is that we weren't going to have these huge overheads. We were going to have small brick and mortars if we did open them, which we are in Pueblo and Canyon City and eventually here in Colorado Springs. So but we are able to transfer the low cost of the premium onto your sellers and your buyers, right? So that was, we're in some areas we're $350 to $700 less expensive on the premium of principal title to any title company here in town.
Right.
So we just roll that onto you. So that's really what was the point that I was trying to make was, those. Imagine right now, being at a large, big box title company that's, downtown Denver, downtown Colorado Springs, or, sitting in, up up in a high-end area, and you're sitting just paying for all of that room, and you have all of these, you've just laid all these people off, and they're all empty spaces. So that's a very, very hard thing to deal with when you're going through a recession. So
right.
yeah, absolutely. And instead of having an employee, you have to pay for the parking lot. You know what I mean? And you're making those decisions. So those decisions are no longer at principal title. We're able to really push those forward, and pass the savings on to the customer. Pass the savings on to your customer, and then have just a great title company. And we can do title work in any county in Colorado. So one niche that we found that we weren't really ready for, not that we weren't ready for it, we just weren't expecting it, was that there was a huge need for us with the traveling closings and the traveling title company in some of the smaller counties. Huerfano County was one of them. I had a call from Meeker. They were struggling in Meeker, and the title company was saying they couldn't do the deal, and we were working with a mobile home. It's kind of a double wide. Yeah, and I don't want to say the name, but it's kind of a trailer, but it was a very good product that's around here from all over southern Colorado. Great product, and we were just really struggling in Meeker, and we were able to knock it out of the park. So that's definitely something that we that we're able to do. We weren't expecting that, right? We weren't expecting to be going into some of the smaller communities out in Lamar and La Junta and Trinidad, and into Meeker and places like that.
Nice,
into Walsenburg.
Well, that's so good for you. You just being in it for so long. Seeing the in and outs of like the big box company, being basically as if the CEO. At one point it seems like for them.
Right. Yeah.
Managing a lot of that, and then seeing the bad side too. Because you did have that lawsuit with them. You went through that.
Absolutely.
And you said, you know what? Now I'm just going to branch off and do my own thing.
Yeah.
And that's awesome. And then now you're also finding the ways to, make it better. That is cool. Able to send out a notary into like Teller County, for a house that's way out in the boonies.
It was really funny. I can't talk a whole lot about it because the lawsuit is over, and worked really well for us. I can say this. I can say that if you ever need help in contracts or in any type of labor dispute, John Sauer, his name. He works with Good Speed and Merrill out of Denver. He's very, very good at his job, and he's very good at the rules and laws and what should be and what shouldn't be.
Right.
So yeah, I would definitely refer you to him if you need anything. Even in real estate, he's super, super amazing.
He got you a win in the case.
He got us a final. So yeah,
nice.
Absolutely, I can say that we are done with that. So yeah. Absolutely, that's what I'm able to say. And I appreciate him very much, but yeah, he did very well. I don't, I don't think that I would have been able to do what, or understand what the rules and laws of labor without him and the contracts that we were in. So he did a great job for us. So And I'm glad to be out of it, and I'm glad that it's over. And I just, after 27 years, I just wasn't quite sure, in going in and understanding some of these things, and to try to help them out, and then being treated, it just was kind of a crazy thing. So just reached out to him and was really, really helpful. So. And he's really able to come to a conclusion for us with Stewart Title.
Nice.
Yeah, absolutely.
Nice.
So super, super good for him. And then, it was really funny. Last week I sent out some emails, and I got kind of a scathing email back, and it said, "How dare you? You're the one who walked in here and laid all these people off in Southern Colorado." And I responded, and I obviously CC'd my attorney, and I said, I hear what you're saying. I can appreciate what you're saying. But I do want you to know this. I do want you to know that if you give me a little more information, because that's not true. And not only is that not true, but no sales manager that I ever knew was in charge of hiring and laying off escrow people. So that's not true. I don't know what you're talking about. But if you would just give me a little more information on where you got that from, I would appreciate that, so we can get that over to John Sauer. I'd appreciate that. So he was interested in that. She was super, super scathing. So it was just I was like, Merry Christmas. And on Christmas Eve, she lit me up, and she's like, don't you ever, whatever. And I'm like,
just recently, this last one?
Absolutely.
Wow,
And,
wow. So they're still salty about.
Yeah, they're a little. I think I was. I don't know. I think they thought that I was in charge of that, and in no way is. Not only was I not in charge of doing it, I'm not in charge. A salesperson is never in charge of actual production in any way, right? So. Salespeople are not in charge of production in any way, and there's a reason for that, because there's an age-old fight, right, between production and salespeople. Because salespeople, production thinks that salespeople go to lunch all day long, and they do. You know what I mean? We build the relationships. We build the initial relationship that the closer takes.
Right.
Finishes through the
right.
life. So
what an awesome job.
Yeah. Wait. So we run around and we talk about title, and we talk about what strengths are and our weaknesses are, and what the other title company's strengths and weaknesses are. We build that relationship and that rapport with all the customers. And then we hand it off, and we hope that the customer service is strong enough to solidify that relationship for a long term, right? Because we can only promise. We promise. We try to under promise and over deliver, right? But it's hard, because what I expect from my production team is harder than what they may be able to do, right? So I expected production team to, you're responding, you've got a problem, you're responding, you've got this, you've got a question, whatever the case may be, you need something closed that there's problems with, right? Because the world's not great. Green grass everywhere, and especially in a down market, tons of fraud happens, right? There's all these people waiting to just, because it gets hard, and then instead of going out and working for little money, they go, well, how can I get it from somebody else? So there's a ton of fraud going on. There's a ton of wire fraud. There's all kinds of weird stuff going on, and you just really have to focus on giving the best customer service. I think Principal Title, as we set that up, and the girls that we have working for Principal Title are super, super strong.
Oh yeah, they are. Yeah, this last deal I did with them was solid.
So we use a program. A couple other title companies use it, but it's called Qualia. Qualia is just through your phone, and everything just runs straight through your phone. So. If you need anything, if you need an update, you just get on your phone and say, I need an update on this file. I get it. I might be, brushing my teeth, getting ready for bed, and I've got an update that you're looking for.
Nice.
Those girls are responding, all hours of the night. I think Cindy is working. I think she starts work at 4:00 in the morning, and then just so that she starts at 4. Little after 4, and then there's some coverage between her and Rebecca, and so it's super.
So your guys are working 24 hours now.
Pretty much, yeah. They're seeing it. Yeah, you shoot it over at 11:00 at night. They're seeing it and they're responding.
Wow.
Yeah, and if it's something that they can't do or that they just work so tomorrow, they're just responding. Hey, we'll get this for you first thing in the morning. I see a ton of those. There's not a problem here, or hey, there is a problem here, but we're working on it. Obviously there's nothing we can do at 11 o'clock at night, but rest assured that that's the first thing that we can do at 8 o'clock in the morning. A lot of times I wake up, like I said, and Cindy's working at like 4 o'clock in the morning, and I start getting all these, all these crazy emails, and I'm like, does that lady work? Does that lady ever sleep? I think she's a vampire. So, but yeah, so super, super helpful. We've got all kinds. The great thing about that too is being a virtual title company with traveling closers. A lot of title companies, even in the big box title companies, I like to call them the big four or five. What they like to do is you've got a traveling closing, so they sit there and they go, okay, traveling closing on one side, that's $175, and we're going to I've got a traveling notary. Well, that's not a traveling closer, right? You get in front of them, you ask them one question about a document, about the note, the deed. You ask about how you're taking title. You're asking about who's getting paid off, or whatever the case may be. And they just look and go, well, I'm going to have to call the closer, and I don't really know this document, but here it is. That's what I do. As a notary, you cannot, by law, as a notary, you cannot explain what the document, what the document's doing. Right. You can explain what the document is, but you can't explain what's going on in the document. You have to call a closer to do that, or else you'll lose your notary license, right? So our traveling closers are actual closers. They know the documents. They know they can discuss everything with the product with you if you have any questions. If they don't, you can get on the phone with the closer. You can do it virtually. You can do whatever you want. I have a lot of mortgage. I have a couple of mortgage lenders down in Pueblo. I have one that is high volume. Obviously not right now, but he's working on some stuff, and they literally are doing advertising that they have online closings. Right. I think the only two there's only two documents that you have to sign in person. So pretty much they just get that done, and then you do everything virtually with the lender, and then working with us, we go to your customer, we go to their house, we go to we come in. It's a personal experience. So it's really really he was this mortgage lender was putting, hey, closing with coffee. You've always heard that coffee is for closers. I think he did the I forgot the movie, but what that was, but I saw it the other day. But he did an advertisement like closing your coffee is for closers, right? Coffee is for closers in your pajamas. Is what he did, what I mean? It was really funny, you know what I mean? Is that one of the Baldwin? I think it's the Baldwin guys. That's like, hey, put that coffee down. Coffee is for closers. You haven't closed anything. So, but anyway, so he did something like coffee is for closers. Coffee is for closings in your pajamas. So that's exactly what we want you to do. We want you to feel super safe. We want you to feel at home. We want you to feel comfortable. I was gonna say, like, COVID, I think, really changed that. Like it split up, buyers and sellers closing at different times. But I personally like that. I don't like having to sit down with both sides, make that small talk. I guess it is kind of like a ceremonial thing in a way, but then again, it is just so much more convenient to close at your office, with some champagne here. When I was over at Unified for the short period of time that I was over there during the end of COVID, they were I was getting phone calls that they'll never use us again because they were shoving documents through people's windows. Yes. They'd say, turn this down just this much, and they'd shove it through the window.
I would do that too.
I heard that from the Elite 25. I heard that from the Elite 25. So
I did a closing like that where they came right out. I was in my car, the buyers were in their car. And everybody's in the parking lot, and they're all walking around with their masks and having everybody sign everything. But it was weird. I
remember too that there were all those closers. A lot of the closers that I knew. I'm not quite sure about some of the other title companies, but the ones that I was involved with, they were super, super upset that they weren't being paid. Like a hazard pay. Yeah. You know what I mean? And they, some of those companies I know all those companies got huge checks for us working because we had to be there, right? So it was really crazy. But Principal Title, it's just not it's
just the future. I think it's the future.
It's absolutely the future. It really allowed us to streamline, and you saw a lot of people just disappear. Right? There were just people disappearing. A lot of the people that weren't absolutely necessary just stopped working, right? They just put them on, on leave and stuff like that. And then, so then we had a quick bump, we had a quick rates were good. We're coming out of COVID. And then, this whole mess happens, right? So, which not quite sure needed to happen, but here we are.
Right,
so,
right.
But yeah, principal title, I think, that's really what we saw. We saw the past and made it into the future. It kind of sounded weird. I remember I had a sales rep that worked for me, and he's like, oh, you got to see this commercial. This is principal title. They're like a online closing company. It's really, kind of crazy. What do you think? Some of the people are using it. And I said, that's, I looked at it and I thought, I was thinking of the lease we were paying and what my mom was telling me about the downtown office in Colorado Springs. And I'm like, God, I wish that was us. You know what I mean? I thought, man, I wish that was me. I wish I had that title company and I didn't have this huge building to work
Right,
with. So, so, because that does go on your premium, right? Those huge leases. And a lot of title companies only will lease for like 4 or 5 years.
Right.
Yeah, because they don't know what's going to happen, and there's a lot of shift within. I think there's always a shift within 5 years. 5 to 7 years, there's always a shift. Some sort of shift happens within 5 to 7 years, and whether it's good or bad, so they can readjust their lease at that time.
Right.
So you never see a title company that owns the building, right? You never see, we own this building. I've never really seen that. Have you guys seen anything like that?
No, I guess not. No.
Yeah. So it's kind of odd, but that's why they do that. So I don't have that problem, right? I mean, I've got this little. I think eventually, I know we were looking at it before rates just skyrocketed. We were looking at a brick and mortar, small brick and mortar, because we just don't need that. And even when we do, which we are absolutely going to do in those areas, but when we do, they will be extremely small. They'll be just a couple offices and one closing table, because we don't want you in our office. Not that we don't want to see you. We love you guys. You know what I mean. But I'd rather see you, after it's all over, after we closed it, after we did some marketing for you, we found you the deal, we turned around and closed it for you, and we just and we're doing a handshake at at happy hour.
Right.
Yeah, that's where we want to see you guys. But I'd rather see you in this office. I'd rather see you
in our acquire office.
Yeah, in your acquire office, and see them closing for you. And at principal title, that fee is built into everything. So there's no extra fee, right? So that's another area where you're going to be paying a lot more, is that they say, okay, well, we have an outside closing. We need to go to acquire. We need to go to Denver or Colorado Springs to get these people closed. Most of the time, traveling closer, of the title companies that I've seen, it's usually $175. And I think there's like an, if the overnight docks to you, there's another fee, you know what I mean? Whatever the case may be, at principal title, it's all built in. It's all built into the one closing fee. So, yeah, super awesome. So.
Yeah, that is awesome. It's such an awesome job too, just that you have, taking people out, doing fun things, we've been friends for like 3 years now, and all the things that we've done together,
we had a great time. We talked about, you learned a lot of title and escrow from me at all those events, though, right? Absolutely. Yeah, no, I'm just kidding with you. Yeah, absolutely. We try to make it a real positive thing. But
it's one of those things you don't think about either, it's part of the process, title companies.
Really weird, right? So during COVID, right, so you couldn't go into an office because they said nobody in this place, can come into an office. Right? Restaurants closed, coffee companies closed, everybody's closed. So it dawned on me, I was at a movie, we were at a movie, and I think I had rented the movie or something like that, and it said, hey, we're still open, you know what I mean? We've got these, you can have small 30-person, meetings here, whatever the case may be, and I was like, okay, all right, you know what I mean? So let's go, right before Thanksgiving, we'll invite all of our best customers, just to make sure everybody that's coming, we'll tell everybody that they're going to sit this far apart. We're going to have a meeting right before the movie. We turn the lights on, we do everything, we have a little happy hour, we watch the movie, you guys take off for Thanksgiving, and you've got all of the things that we were doing, and it really allowed me to keep in contact with my customers. Because, I mean, if you look at COVID, I think it was like 2 years. It felt like 2 years, right? It felt like forever, but I think we went through pretty much 2 years of COVID where we couldn't, it was really mask, lockdown. And even when it was locked down, we were still meeting, at some of those title meetings, and we were, And we'd go to I think it was like $100 for us to have a movie, right? And they weren't really playing new movies, so they allowed me to rent whatever I wanted.
Right.
And they allowed me to put my stuff on the screen and stuff like that. And so I couldn't take four of you guys, all four of you guys to dinner. You know what I mean?
Right,
So
for
we'd
that.
have our folks be
Yeah.
there too, and so you know what I mean. But that's $25 a person for lunch. We couldn't even do that for lunch, and I've got you guys at a movie, and we have a big meeting
Nice.
before, and yeah. So it was just you really had to think outside of the box on how to communicate with your customers and keep in contact, keep that touch with your customers, but you couldn't obviously be around them to touch. So it was a huge problem, and there was only so many times that like if I called you like, hey, what's going on? What are you doing?
Right.
How you been? You're like, hey, you called me yesterday. Nothing is going on in my house. I can't leave. I can barely go to the gas station, right? So it was really a difficult thing, and but it was a great way for us, and I really pushed the Elite 25 to begin meeting in person, because we were obviously an open house group, right? We're pretty much doing an open house in which the high end and the elite of the area, right? So how do you do that? So what I did with the Elite 25 was I did it in person and virtual. So we were, so like Bobby Price, I think, was one that really, I think, if I remember right, she maybe had a parent that she was taking care of. I can't remember. We had a couple people that were taking care of some ill family parents and stuff like that. And then, I think some of them may have had some health issues that they were like, hey, I just don't feel comfortable yet. And so we did. I think you remember we did some virtual. Mm-hmm. We did the whole meeting virtually off of my phone, I think is what we did. Uh-huh. So it was super helpful, and we went through some weird times with that. So but it allowed us to understand really what was important in real estate, and that's really the human touch and the human content and the human value, right? So
it is, yeah. Real estate is all that in all aspects, yeah.
Right. Mm-hmm. People ask me probably what was my, a lot of people ask me what my success in this industry, and it's I think the answer is simple. It's just to, you've got to care, right? But you can't be like fake caring, right? You've got to really care. But how do you care about somebody, right? How do you identify and care about somebody or how do you care about somebody that you don't normally identify with, right? So how do you sell to a 78-year-old, great grandmother of 15 people, right?
Right.
You don't identify, right? You don't share the same commonalities other than you breathe, and there's a real estate involved, right? So I think the most important thing is you have to say, you have to ask a lot of questions on. Like a lot of emotionally based value questions, right? And you control it with questioning, right?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
You sit down and you ask what's important. Realtors and lenders like to talk about themselves because they make great money and they're super successful. So anytime you talk to them, they really like to talk about themselves. So you just talk to them. You ask them what's important in their life,
Right.
And I got to be honest with you, there's probably two things that are important to any realtor and lender, and once you get to those, two things, the quickest, that's who wins, right? That's anything. Like even in a lawsuit, whoever finds what's really going on, there's really two things that are going on. The first side to get to those two things first wins anytime, right? So you're sitting down. A lot of times, and most of the time, 99% of the time, it's time and money, right? Time and money. So you ask them what's important, what they're trying to get. And you ask them questions because, even at Principal Title, we have a full service marketing company, and we can do so much for you guys to find, possible buyers and sellers, and we can find different things and different varieties of it and different angles for you guys to really reach out to them. But how do you, if you have too much, and you're controlling it with all your product, it's called, obviously it's called a product dump. I don't know if you've ever been product dumped on at a lunch meeting or something like that, but it's like, you look down at your feet and you're like, did you just throw up on my shoes? I don't even know where to start with all of that. But you do that with, I had some amazing programs, and I do now. I have some extremely amazing programs now that really take off and will really put some horsepower into your marketing. And you throw that at somebody that doesn't find value in it, and they're like, you just wasted $47 of your lunch money. You know what I mean? That you could have done on a totally different version. So you just ask a lot of questions, and you ask emotionally value-based questions. What's important to you? What direction are you trying to go?
Right. I also think that good people find good people a lot of the time.
Correct.
Like you'll just get along with somebody even though they are older, or maybe way younger. I've been able to kind of go with both. It's just we just have to kind of like each other. And like you said, in this business, it's all personal. It's building those connections. So I guess I've worked with people too who it's been all business, there is no relationship, but there's, a lot of people, I would say the majority of people that I've worked with, like we are on an emotional level where it's like straight up, yeah, hey man, how things been? I just haven't talked to you in a while, it's just throughout time, you just build that bond.
And I think really you had a meeting that we discussed that, with a certain person last week, and you were like,
Right.
You know what I mean? That
Yeah,
just
yeah. It just isn't working.
Yeah, just this is not working. We don't have. So the first thing first thing that you notice is that you have no direct connection to them. There's no you're not sharing anything other than you breathe and they breathe, right?
Right.
And you're both in real estate, right? And really, for that person to really connect with you, they have to find out what's important to you, because what was important to that person, I heard from you. What was important to that person was checks. Just cashing checks.
Mm-hmm.
Get them in the mail.
Right.
Cashing those checks.
Yeah,
right? That's what
gravy
you're saying to me,
train,
right?
yeah,
Gravy
right.
train, right? Checks. And we're laughing at something totally different, right?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I think it was a good thing for me to step in and just be like, hey, this is important. This is important to you. I know it's important to you. I know what what future lies for you. And yeah, if you ever sit down with somebody who goes, I don't give a shit about my family and I don't care about time, all I want is cash and checks,
Right.
get up and run.
Yeah, right, because this is not...
Because that is not a human being.
No.
That is not a human being.
No.
And they have no value in their life, right? So that person usually isn't in the business very long because they're doing all kinds of bad things.
Right.
And
It's like, how do you survive in this business
right,
like that?
Dora,
You don't.
Yeah, you don't, and you don't have any friends. You don't have any, you don't have any commonalities in
No.
it. And then Dora usually comes and shuts you down.
Right.
So
Yeah,
those are the people that get all those fines or no.
Or the letters, the complaints, right.
Tons of complaints, and then you have a bunch of investigations. And I know that investigator. I've spoken with that investigator for the state, and they're not looking at the big person. The big real estate company that's doing this. They don't go in and investigate it as hard as they're looking for the little guy that they can really make a. You know what I mean?
On.
Yeah. She's like, I'm looking for the guy out in, way out in Lahana or Lamar, or that's out in the middle of nowhere, just doing business how they think they should do business. So yeah, and obviously, if they get a bunch of complaints on somebody, that they will absolutely get after them, right?
Right.
But they're not looking for that big, that big person. They're really looking more towards the little person that's like, hey, I'm an island out here, and in the middle of nowhere, and you know what I mean. Not that Lahana and Lamar is in the middle of nowhere, but that's what they're looking for. They're really going after those folks. So those people who I've noticed through the last 30 years, the people that go, I don't care about anything but money, those people are no longer in this industry. Or
Right.
they're in jail, what I mean? So,
Right. Mm-hmm.
So it's been a lot of fun. 30 years, it's just been a lot of fun. And,
Nice.
I've learned a lot, and I've made a lot of really good friends. So, yeah, as you can tell.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, so yeah, my customers are obviously like family, so, and that's really what you have to do, and you have to treat every single one of your customers as family, right? And just with that emotionally based value, and
Mm-hmm.
this is important to them, that's important to them. I knew a sales rep I met just maybe a couple of years ago when things were going down, and they'd say, tell something new about anybody. Is anybody got anything good? And this guy would go, I'm a grandpa. And they're like, okay, congratulations. You know what I mean? And people would be having conversations, and he'd go in and interrupt the conversation to give his, he was forcing things and forcing
Got it.
things and forcing
Yeah,
things,
yeah.
and it felt really forced. You know what I mean?
Yes. Yeah, it isn't genuine.
Yeah, it just wasn't genuine. So you do have to absolutely be genuine, and you can, you can let it happen, just by asking questions. You know what I mean? You don't offer up anything that anybody doesn't really care to know. You know what I mean? So, but once you get somebody who's asking a lot of questions, boy, you just knock it out of the park with them. You know what I mean? So yeah. So yeah. Anyway, what do you guys think?
Yeah, I mean, I love it. I love everything that you got going on with Principal Title and all of it, man. I'm happy that you made the leap for you,
Yeah,
in order
absolutely.
to do this. Yeah, very capital move.
It wasn't apparent to me at the time. I just thought it would just kind of come to fruition. I just didn't know which direction I was going to go. I asked, I'm not really retirement age, but I'm close, right? And I thought, I had been with the same company for 27 years, right? So you think, people were like, you're a dinosaur. We've never even heard of that before. You become the odd man out, right? You become the person that you don't become, sometimes the industry makes you feel like when you're really loyal, when you're really, really loyal, you're like, hey, I'm really loyal. And they're like, hey, you're a problem.
Right.
You know what I mean? We don't know what to do with you because now you're making too much money and now you're doing this or that. You know what I mean? Where are you? Where are you in this whole scheme of things? So you become a problem for them, which is really sad because loyalty, you know what I mean? Loyalty should be rewarded and not be like, oh my God, we have a problem here, right? So
Right.
I think, when I was going through it, I just kept thinking, we can do this better.
Yes.
I know we can do this better. But where is this going to end for me? And it worked out really extremely well, and it worked out a lot later down in the road than I thought it would. I didn't even know, I didn't even know that, I had taken a job as an expansion director, which did exactly the same thing that I was doing, but I just had to focus on real estate. So, instead of, working with lenders and builders and attorneys and stuff like that in title. So, but it was pretty much the same thing, right? It was go after the best and the brightest of the future has to offer in the real estate community. I knew those people, right? So, as I went through it, it just really came to light, that this was what we should do, is that we should open a new title company with, I know that the title and escrow business started in like Texas in 1876, right? And they've been doing the business the same way, and they're like, if it's not broken, let's not fix it, right? Well, it was broke. It is broke. And we knew how to fix it. And we knew, I'm sitting around the table with a bunch of real estate folks going, hey, this is a time we could build a title company by real estate professionals for real estate professionals. We know what we need. We're tired of people handing us stuff that we don't need and trying to make us pay for their parking lots and their weird buildings and all of their vacations that they're having. And we want just a title company that's important to us.
Right.
About
a lot
the
less
things that are
overhead.
and a lot less overhead. And then we're going to transfer the discounts to our customers. So
In 1876, is that what you said? Is that what?
1876.
Wow. Yeah. So back then they were like, what we need, I'm tired of is Billy Bob saying his great granddaddy owns this house. We need some kind of insurance here. All those settlers and prospectors trying to stake claims.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
It was a weird thing. It was called an abstract. So what they would do is, so in the late 1800s, there would be like a land grant from the president. And they'd say, this is going to be for, whatever. This is going to be for cattle. This is going to be for people to live on. And so we were land granting it for purchase, right? So they'd grant the land. And then so when you bought or sold anything after that, you'd get what was called an abstract title. And an abstract title was an abstract company would come in, and so you get a title commitment and you see what the exceptions are, what you need to do before, this needs to be paid off, this needs to be done, all of the exceptions, and this is what we're going to, insure, and this is what we're not going to insure, and this is what's going to hold it up. You just get it in writing, right? Well, with an abstract, they gave you every deed in and out since the since the land patent. Like, I was doing them in Huerfano County, and it was like 1890, right? And then we'd have to, what they would do is they'd actually take a copy of the document and place it in order, and they'd say, okay, this person deeded in here, this person, and they got this, they mortgaged it here, right? Or they, sold cattle, and what did they sell for it? All of it was listed, and they gave the actual boundaries of it. And some of them were like, that I was reading, were like 150 large men steps from the old oak tree, and there's no, what I mean, that old oak tree hadn't been there. I was reading some of this. Well, in an abstract, they take each document, a copy of each document, place it in order, and then they gave that to usually what was an attorney at the time, and then that attorney went through every single document to see if they were in and out correctly, making sure that there was no fraud, which was probably not. They couldn't even tell, right? And then they'd say, okay, they sold off a piece of this to this other person, so now that no longer exists, and it has to be, what I mean?
Crazy.
So it was really crazy. Some of them were boxes full of abstracts, right? And then the attorney would give a kind of a written submission of it, and then they'd sell it, right? And they'd say, okay, this needs to be done, it needs to be surveyed, whatever, because we don't know which way it is or which way it's going. So it was an abstract, and then it went there. Some countries do kind of a adverse possession.
I've heard that.
So in Africa they do that in I had a great friend of mine that worked at Stewart Title, and he was in charge. His name was Ted Jones, and he was in charge of a lot of different things. He's a great guy, but he was in charge of a group that went into some of the third world countries and set up kind of lot and block and assessor companies, and what I mean, just kind of set the whole thing up for them. Because in South Africa, pretty much you just go to an area, you go to a spot where you want to do it, and you put up a big sign that says, I'm going to build a house
right
here.
That's what adverse possession is when you basically live in the house or live in the property, and you get your mail sent there for so long, and then you eventually acquire it because you've just been there and everybody recognizes that you've been there.
Pretty much everybody recognizes it without any
legality,
and they say, no, you don't own that, right? So they do it in a different way, right? Like a bunch of people go move into your house, and you live in a different state, and they're there, and you don't make it known that they're to vacate immediately, right? And I think it's 7 years, seven or 13, I can't remember, I'd have to look it up. But in South Africa, that's exactly what they do. They go and they see a spot in between two houses, and they say, I'm going to build a house there. And then they put a big sign. They say, we're going to build a house here. Anybody has any ownership of this, let us know now.
Or any issue, yeah.
Right? So then they dig the foundation. They put up another sign. We're going to move a house here. We've got, so it's in pieces, right? So they set up the forms, right? And then they pour the side, the concrete. They do it again. So if somebody comes in, and says, no, you don't own that. I've owned that for years. I've been here for this long. You just spent, $50,000 to build, to dig a hole and build somebody's basement for them. So it's really kind of a crazy thing. But Ted would go into some of I think he was going into West Africa and doing some stuff for them. Really, really amazing stuff. So just kind of, people ask me all the time, is title and escrow, is title really worth it? And I think the answer to that question is you never know that answer until you go through it. And at that point, if you have a problem, title insurance is the least expensive insurance you will ever buy in your life.
Right.
And owner's extended coverage is even better because it covers so much for so little, right? So,
which we always do in all of our deals.
Yeah, in all your deals, I would always do it. It's no reason to save. We're $45, I believe.
Wow.
Yeah, so we're less expensive there too. So, but if you don't know you need it until you have a problem, like I said. People ask a lot of time, what really is title insurance? And, the answer to that is really, casualty insurance. It's actually called indemnity insurance. So casualty insurance is kind of the opposite. Casualty insurance is a future look at hey, if anything happens to you in the future, you get into a wreck, you fall down, you slip on some ice, you get hit in the head by a brick that comes off the top, whatever the case may be. you do that, we're going to help you, right? We're going to make you legally whole. We're going to make sure that you're whole. So indemnity insurance looks at the past, right? So all the encumbrances, anything that's happened in the past that's going to lean a cloud onto the title. So, and you just don't ever know, right? So what does it really protect? It really, you can't take a piece of property and you can't put it in your pocket and walk around with it and show all your friends and, you know what I mean, and take it for a drive. You can't do that, right? Because it's a tangible. It's so huge and so massive, obviously. So what it does is title insurance protects really the all of your rights to that property, and it lays them out and then protects them, and then allows you to sell them to somebody else, right?
Right.
You can live there, you can improve the property, you can drive back and forth on it, your kids can play on it, you can do whatever it is that you want, you can improve it, and then you can sell it at the end of the day for the improved price. That's exactly what title insurance does for you. So yeah, so it's been a great journey.
Nice. Yeah, that's awesome. Awesome.
Yeah, people ask me all the time, they say, what do you they're like, I talked a little bit about when I was going to retire, and I'd ask a lot of my peers, I'd say, when do you know it's time to retire? I think, as living in Pueblo and then managing like Colorado Springs title companies and Denver title companies, and for a couple of months I was in Aspen and Vail, and so on and so forth. When is it time to retire? I just didn't, I'm like, am I going to ride this thing until I'm 72 years old? Really? Is that right? That's what I thought too. And I thought, but when do I know when it's time to retire and what I'm going to do? I always thought maybe I'll be realtor, maybe I'll be, who knows, something in real estate. And a good friend of mine told me, he said, the profession will let you know when it's time for you to retire, And I thought that was really interesting when he said that. And I said, yeah, it will let you know. And I said, well, when is that? And he said, it will be a lot sooner than you really think.
Probably.
Right. So, yeah. So, and I knew when this whole thing, after 27 years, I mean, 27 years, that was the longest relationship I've ever had.
Yeah.
My children were, my daughter's 25, my son's 13. That was, I've been married a few times, and some for a few days. So, it was really the longest relationship I'd ever had with a logo.
Yes.
Right? It wasn't even a real entity, because I had outlasted people who, you know what I mean? I probably had 7 state sales managers. I went through probably 9 regional directors. You know what I mean? People that thought, Yeah, absolutely. And then you have to, the funny thing about those things, working in those, is that you have to prove yourself. They look at your paycheck, and then they look at your order counts, and they look at this, and they look at that. Now you have to prove yourself to each and every one. So we'd get some new sales manager, or some new this, or some new that, and I'd be like, oh, here we go. I'd be like, so obviously it's a great profession. But like you said, what a great profession it is. But when I wake up in the morning, I'm scared out of my mind, right?
I bet.
Yeah, you're scared out of your mind, because just like you guys, it's really nice because I can call you and you could say, hey, don't call me anymore. And then, a couple months later, I send you an email about a class and you're responding, and you're like, hey, I'd like to be at your class. And I'm like, okay, sounds good, great. Let's, blah, blah, blah. And then we start to build a rapport. But for a real estate, when I talk to real estate agents about that, when I was running the expansion director over at Keller Williams, I was, they were saying how scary it is for them. I said, I have to wake up every morning and I go, I have to prove myself every morning. They're like, how would you like to? You get it with licenses. We get it. They were saying they package up little buildings for you guys, and they put realtors and lenders in it, and then you go there. How would you like to not know where your seller's coming from or where your buyer's coming from? Just going,
right.
Sending out a message and going, is anybody listening?
Well, that is.
Hello.
That's exactly
right?
how it is.
Yeah.
Right. So it was really scary, and it really sent home for me, right? Because I, like I said, I really in anything I do, I do emotionally based value questions and really try to understand each individual that I'm talking to so that I can give them the best, customer experience. You know what I mean? Because if you're not worried about us closing in your office and I'm going, hey, we're going to close in your office, it's going to be great. And you're like, yeah, I really don't care. Don't come to my office. I don't ever go there. I've heard that before. They're like, I don't care. Don't come to my office. I don't even go there. That happens. So you just really have to know. But that really hit home with me when that realtor said that to me. I'm trying to think I can almost see their face. But they were like, how would you like to wake up every morning with the same problem? And go, I have no idea who I'm going to talk to today. That lead gen was just, they're like, your lead gen, we're packaged for a sales rep, for a title company. There's a license. We got a logo on the door for you. You know what I mean? There's a lady who either says, is a gatekeeper at the front door going, hey, you can come in if you're nice to me, or you can stay out if you're not. You bring me, you bring me Starbucks, or you'll see you standing at that door. You know what I mean? Or don't come here, you know what I mean? But we're packaged for you in a box, right? Mm-hmm. And they said, imagine if you had to send out a message that no one responded to.
Oh yeah.
It's super scary.
Millions of those.
Mm-hmm. Right.
I'll send an email to 11,000 people and I'll get 0 responses, and I'm just like,
that's why I like all your stuff on Instagram. I'm probably the only one. No, I'm kidding.
There's 11,000 people and I got no responses. How is that even possible?
I'm one of the 23 that you got on yesterday's post. So and I'm probably gonna have to get a new picture, by the way. So
yeah, I think with us and this too is just even doing this, getting out to the public and getting them to know who we are, is so helpful.
I've changed my marketing for realtors to really identify real lead gen people that would really respond. Right. I want that gratification to be more immediate and more strong for you guys. So we've done things like what are recordable events in people's lives that you could go after that would make them move, right? I call them the 3Ds: the divorce, dismemberment, and
death.
Yeah, and there's birth in there too, right? So you've got some of those things that are recordable events, and the other thing that's out there that you guys could really look at is, in the old days you used to call us and go, hey, we need the lead gen. I need 300 homes around, within a half mile of 1, 2, 3, 4 South, Main Street. And I'd send you all the owner-occupied people, right? I might send you something with who might have equity. We really couldn't guarantee it. You might be able to pull a timeline or something like that. There were some things that we could throw in there, but you get this huge list from us. And a lot of times you'd never go through it, right? It's a lot of work. We do a couple postcards for you, just listed, just sold. Hey, come to our open house, whatever the case may be. Look at my mom's, banana bread recipe, whatever the case may be. Just kind of
call to actions and lead nurturing and just some stuff that brand standardization stuff that was going on for you. But I really was like, hey, we've got to get this is your money that you're spending with me. I feel personally involved in this, and if it fails, I feel like I failed you.
Right. Well, which you would have.
Yeah, which I would have, and I'd be like, well, you're like, what's the response? And I'm like, it's 2%. You're like, you're going to get, and that's iffy. Right?
Yeah.
You're going to get 2 people out of every 100 that probably are going, and the response is going to be, hey, stop sending me postcards.
Yeah. Right.
So that was something that we really looked at, and some of those recordable events are really good. So you'd say, hey, send me all of the 3Ds around 1, 2, 3, 4 South Main. One of the other things that we are doing is that we allow kind of a rate turnover. It's kind of a hot sheet list, right? We say, okay, you say, I need everybody. There's an average turnaround time in each specific area, right? Mm-hmm. So Fremont County's I think was 11 and a half years. Pueblo County, the average turnover rate is 7. Some areas in Pueblo County, some are 4, some are 2 to 4, some are 7, and some are 14 to 17, just depending on what area you're doing, right? So we can depict those areas for you, and we say, okay, we can look at who has equity and who's coming up to or at or just recently beyond that average turnover rate in that area, right? So you can send them something. One thing we can do for
for some of the 3Ds is not be so direct on, hey, we heard you had a divorce. I'd like to sell your house and date your husband.
Yeah.
Would you like home?
Yeah.
But yeah, you don't want to do that, right? So what you're doing is you're saying we specialize in separation. We at the bottom, we're the area. I always do. We're the area. We're like the neighborhood salesperson. We specialize in and then list those things. Separation. We also specialize in probate. That's a great one too. And you say we're in separation and divorce. We also do really well with the probation or with the death and the court proceedings through that, and then
Right, just having everything available in those realms.
and we know where, and if you move, whether, and let's do something like whether you're moving up or down, we're your area, we're your area guy, right? Because when you have a baby and your wife's like, I am not, there's 3 kids in one room, what are we going to do?
Right.
That's an emergency, right? So that's something that would bring an aperture moment for them too. So, so those are just some of the things that we we're trying to make sure that we throw with our,
Yes.
accentuate in our marketing, because I hate to just, run your money. And I'll tell you, hey, I don't think this is going to do anything, but,
Sure.
hey, if you're just trying to send your brand and your logo and, hey, I'm a realtor, do it.
Yeah, that's
You
the
know?
hardest part about being a realtor is just trying to you
Right.
get to deal with the whole public. Your targets are easy. It's us, or anybody who is a realtor.
Right. It was really funny. I had a guy that did like a Bronco schedule. Did we lose the video?
Yeah, we did,
Okay.
but we could
That's
still
okay.
go.
Yeah, so it was really funny. They did a Bronco schedule, and I'll close with this so we can all go grab lunch. But
Sure.
he's the Bronco guy, right? Really super good friend of mine. I used to refer lots of business to him through the year because he was such a great guy. But really nice guy in Pueblo. And I said I called him up and I said, hey, you've done a Bronco schedule for 20 years, and you've done one with me for 7. This Bronco schedule's like you have 1 or 2 days and it's going to be old. It's coming out. You want to do this? And he goes, I'm done doing it. I said, you're kidding me. You've done it for 30 years. You're going to change the way you do things now, right? You're going to change your stuff. People are going to be pissed. They're actually going to call you and go, where's my fucking schedule?
Probably.
He goes, they're gonna call you and say, "Where's my schedule?" He said, that's exactly what happened. What happened was I got a call from a guy, and we didn't, it wasn't during the time. And he said, hey, can I do you have any left over from this year? The Bronco schedules, I really like those. I need another one. And he said, what happened to your old one? And he said, well, we moved, and I left it on the old refrigerator, and I need a new one for my new refrigerator. And he said, you moved?
Whoa.
So you don't become a realtor with those. You have to really watch those, because he said, I lost it, like, hey, I'm your realtor,
Right.
to I'm the Bronco schedule guy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He missed
that's
the
not
branding mark. Yeah.
He missed the branding mark, and he didn't do it on purpose. It just slipped. It
It's,
just slipped under.
it's a human psyche.
Right. It's a human psyche, right?
Yeah.
So that's some of the things that we really find. But thank you guys so much for having me.
Hey,
on.
no,
I
thank
appreciate
you,
you guys for
yeah.
coming on. Absolutely, and I to be honest with you, I loved every minute of every job I ever had, and every job was a lesson, right? Every year was a lesson, every deal was a lesson, and you're just glad to be able to rock out this new company. And it is, I mean, with the order count that we're getting in, especially in a lower market, it's going to skyrocket when things even go back to a normal real estate market. So we're super excited. About
Yeah,
it, so,
we look
yeah.
forward to doing a lot of business over online. Being ahead of the curve too. With
Absolutely.
you. So
You guys are way ahead. So
Yeah.
appreciate you guys.
Yeah,
So,
no problem.
Absolutely. Thanks again, you guys. Thanks
Yeah.
for having me.
Yeah.
Thank you.